Hafaday and good afternoon. We are now continuing our confirmation hearings. The time is now 2:41 in the afternoon. We will now begin the confirmation hearing of E. Magahaga's nominee, Maximo P. Ronquillo Jr., to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. To restate the committee's general housekeeping rules, the conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of those that have signed in. Written testimonies that are read should be summarized to be about 5 minutes and shall be confined to the substance. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once and are requested to remain seated so that the committee may request for additional comments. Please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak directly into the microphone. Please state your name for the record as you begin your testimony. So let's go ahead and begin. We have Jackie Balbus, who is the acting director of CAHA, who is here to provide her support. And then we have Mr. Ronquillo, who is also here. So for those testifying, if you could come sit at the table. Sousou Massey, both of you, for being here. And so what I will do is begin with the acting director of CAHA, Ms. Jackie Balbus. If you could state your name and then provide your testimony.
Hafaday, Madam Chair. My name is Jackie Balbus, and I'm the acting executive director of CAHA. I'm here today to testify in support of Mr. Ronquillo's appointment to the CAHA board. I remember Max when he used to be a member of the Territorial band under Chuck Hardy, and he rose through the ranks and became the music director. I think it was around maybe 2003, I believe, 2004. And since then, he's brought the Territorial band, he's brought a lot of recognition to them and to Guam as well. They've won awards internationally, and of that we can be proud. But I also am in favor of his appointment to the CAHA board because he's an educator, longtime educator, and I'm at Ukadu High School right now. And I think that we have a diverse board here at CAHA. Out of the 13 seats, if his appointment and Mr. Reyes' appointment is confirmed, we'll almost have a full board. There'll only be 2 empty slots. And I think with his music background, that would bring something to the table for CAHA. Most of the members of the board are community members at large from businesses. We have traditional artists, some masters, but I think he can bring a different perspective to our board. And with that, I'm hoping that we'll be able to implement new initiatives and policies that will grow the arts on Guam. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sousou Massey. And I agree. I think that looking at his background and his experience, that it brings an important perspective from the community that is also part of the arts. It's also part of what brings pride to the community and really provides a lot of just benefits to the community to have access to a program like the Territorial Band, where we can see our musicians. And I was here just the other day when there was a resolution, and we really saw that young and old. There were members, I forget how young they got, 8 or 9 or something maybe, and then, all the way up to, I think, in the 60s. So something that can really draw the community and bring a lot of pleasure to our community lives. So I agree that he brings a lot of that perspective that maybe hasn't always been brought to the CAHA board. So Sousou Massey for your testimony. And then Mr. Ronquillo, if you can go ahead and provide your testimony.
Half a day, Madam Chair. My name is Maximo Ronquillo Jr., and I'd like to first start off by thanking Magahaga Lulian Guerrero for her recommendation that I sit on the CAHA board, and also to our current acting director, Ms. Balbus, for her testimony just a few minutes ago. I'm here to answer any questions you have. You have my resume and application, and I'm here at your disposal if you have any questions concerning this confirmation hearing appointment.
Sousou Massey for that. So in going through the materials that you provided, and as the acting director for CAHA was mentioning, you bring also these skills and understandings and of a part of the community where it's having served as a teacher, and so being familiar with those that are at the high school level or younger through the territorial band. So I think something that's come up over these different times that we've had our confirmation hearings is we want to make sure that the arts is available to everybody for both appreciation, but also for developing new artists. And so your experience with these age groups, I think, will be really useful.
Thank you very much for that, ma'am.
And then in looking at and building on what Ms. Balbus was saying, if we look at the excellence of your participation or your leadership in these sort of events, that with the music programs that you've been a part of, you guys have won the Bronze Award at the Pacific Basin Music Festival, the Gold Award for the Guam Territorial Band in Australia, the Silver Award for the Guam Territorial Band again at the New York Band and Orchestra Festival, and the list goes on, as well as the associations that you're a part of, the Symphony Band and Ensembles at the World Association, the United States Army Warrant Officer Association, and so forth. So I think those probably speak to the great commitment that you know how to provide to serving on a board. So going over some of the standard questions that we ask, CAHA does have a pretty sizable board. I think that there are 13 members, if I remember correctly. And it's important to make sure they do meet regularly. They are a very active board. The CAHA itself is very active and very important to our community, so we're very, very grateful for what they provide. So with this and your involvement in the other entities, do you see yourself being able to commit the time it takes to be part of these monthly meetings and other commitments that being a board member would bring?
Yes, ma'am. My only personal reservation is I am part of the National Guard, and I serve as the commander of the 721st Army Band. And so as a member of the Guard, I can be called up at any time and for performances that we may have on island and off island. And so the only issue would be is if those meetings would occur when I'm called for duty. So for that, that would be the only complication I see, where I personally won't be available to be at the board meetings, but I can definitely provide feedback and testimony and musical expertise or music education perspective to the board on any issues that may come before the board.
Very good. And it put an interesting thought. I don't know that I've ever actually really thought about being a National Guard member and being part of a board and what that would mean. But certainly we see in our agencies and throughout the government of Guam that there are many who also wear those dual roles, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And they create some sort of balance. So we appreciate your commitment and understand that that is a commitment that would have to be balanced along with the others. So Also, we typically asked about whether you feel you have any conflicts of interest, or if any conflict of interest arises, how you would proceed with that.
Yes, ma'am. Currently, the Guam Territorial Band is a program under CAHA. And so, should I be confirmed, I have already made steps where my leadership with the Guam Territorial Band would cease. And so a successor will have to be named and things of that nature, so that there would be no conflict of interest and I could serve the board without any reservation or having to be recused for any thing of that nature. So in that respect, ma'am, I think that's the only thing, and I brought that up when I was recommended. I said the Guam Territorial Band is part of CAHA, and so if there is any perceived or soon to be perceived conflict of interest, that I would definitely have to step down as the music director for the Guam Territorial Band if I'm confirmed. And with that, I can sit back and be as impartial as very possible to make sure the board functions properly without any issues or complications, ma'am.
Sousou Massey for a very thorough answer, and I think that really speaks to your integrity, that you would be considering stepping down if need be. And you know, having seen what a large part of your life participating in musical organizations such as the Territorial Band, I can see that you would be very, very committed to the CAHA board if you were willing to take such steps.
Yes, ma'am. If I may add, I've been part of the band, as she can attest to, as she's probably been in CAHA as long as I've been in the band. It's 30 years this year. I've been a part of the Guam Territorial Band, starting off as a member between my 7th and 8th grade year as a student at F.B. Leongro Middle School, and I've been with the band ever since. And in 2001, shortly after the 9/11 world events, there was a need for me to take over the band in an acting capacity, and then in 2003, I took over. So I think it's time. I think it's fitting that if I am confirmed, I think it's time for me to hand off the reins to the next generation. Not that there's anything that I regret. It's been a great 30 years, and it's time for the next generation to fill the shoes. I have to tell you, the role of music director of Guam Territorial Band is a very thankless job, as I think my predecessors would say, but it's a very important job, and it really resonates throughout the entire music community in Guam. And with that, should I be confirmed, I am confident the organization will continue to be excellent, and it will continue to represent Guam well locally and abroad.
Well, in part, you already answered another question that's often often asked, and that is, they'll perhaps point out that being a board member, in your case, it's a 4-year commitment. So I completely am assured that if I were to ask you if you felt like you could withstand the 4-year commitment after your 30-year commitment to the Territorial Band, that the 4 years will be a breeze as far as seeing that commitment through. So again, that speaks very well to your character in that regard, and we appreciate that. Is there any particular focus or direction that you are thinking of with CAHA that you would like to see them go in, or something that you think you could particularly champion while you're there? I'm not sure if you've thought along those lines yet.
I have thought about that since the governors made the recommendation, and I think I can help in the areas of partnering with the community, especially the business community. I especially would like to see that we expand our programs, and that requires money. And so I am not the very best at fundraising or finding ways to increase funds for CAHA and its programs, but I would like to investigate that not only here locally, but with the connections I have made over the 30 years with friends in the same industry throughout the world, how they do it, and to see how we can further enhance our programs with CAHA. First and foremost, to find a way to increase funding. There's great programs in dance, the cultural arts, the performing arts with the theater programs, with Gate Theater, and with the visual arts especially. I think we have a great visual artists here in Guam, and I know we've had programs already in place where we could kind of like have a clearinghouse to sell their artwork, not only for the organization that spearheads that, but also for the artists themselves. But to expand all of these things, I think they're all great programs. And right now, the situation, if the acting director may concur, is that we have a finite amount of money, and we're just doing the very best we can to make sure all the programs exist year to year. But definitely, as we can see in places around the world where the arts thrive, they can definitely enhance the community business-wise by attracting visitors to those areas, and also just enhance the overall quality of life for everybody who lives in those areas. It's nice if we could see more programs here in Guam where we have stuff to do every other night for just our local community, not talking tourists, just our local community, to have a different, maybe a different live show every night somewhere, whether it just be a straight play or a musical. I think it just brings a lot of joy to everybody, and I think that's what CAHA aims to do, is that I'm thinking that I'm already part of it, that we will work very hard to make the existing programs just flourish so that we can have a better community where we're all very happy and joyful and continue to be thankful that we live in paradise here in Guam.
Sousou Massey, for your thoughtful answer. I can tell that you have been contemplating this for a while and really given it that time to think about it in from different angles and different ways that it could be carried out, and also the many ways that, as you mentioned, it has an economic component. It's some of a draw. It makes us feel like we have this richer life to have access to the arts. It adds to our overall quality of life, and certainly I'm for having more things to do in the community so that we're a very active community. And we just had some confirmation hearings, and although I, for one, am a big fan of television programs, but I think also the more that we are active as a community ourselves and getting out and participating and interacting with each other, the richer we are for that as well. And then we can just have PBS film us while we're there, right, as a local event. And so some of what you mentioned and some of what you have in the material you provided, you've shown us that you've traveled a bit, you've seen or talked about, you had mentioned a little bit of what's going on in the region. And so I too, in going through these different hearings and with my oversight, have been thinking about ways that we can continue to build on what we have, having maybe sculpture out in the parks or in the public spaces more so. Now we have different climate than some of the places
Yes.
that I've been to. I've been to places where we have these exhibits under the stars and exhibits out in nature. We have to really plan for those because we never know when rain is going to come our way, but
Absolutely.
those different elements. So I'm very pleased with the background that you bring, the thoughtfulness that you've provided, your very comprehensive answer to any conflicts of interest, and the sacrifices that you'd be willing to make if need be. So if there is no further testimony that you'd like to share, I will go ahead and conclude this part of our confirmation hearing. So if there is no one else who wishes to testify, there being none, this committee will conclude the confirmation hearing of Maximo P. Ronquillo to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. The committee will continue to receive testimonies for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs, and submit it via email to office.senatorkelly@guamlegislature.org or to my office located at the second floor of the Guam Congress Building. What we'll do is go to a small recess. The time is now 2:58, and then we will continue with our final confirmation hearing. Sousou Massey for coming here this afternoon. Hafaday and good afternoon. Sousou Massey, everyone, for coming out and participating in this confirmation hearing. We will now begin the confirmation hearing of E. Makahaga's nominee, Vincent J. Reyes, to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. To restate the committee's general housekeeping rules, the conduct of this public hearing shall be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order of those signed in. Written testimonies that are read should be summarized to about 5 minutes and should be confined to the substance. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony only once and are requested to remain seated so the committee may request for additional comments. Please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak directly into the microphone. Then, after you've turned the microphone on, please state your name for the record. What we will do is we will begin. We have several people here providing support, and we have 2 that have signed up to provide testimony. What we will do is we will start with the acting director for CAHA, Ms. Jackie Balbus. Then we will hear from Mr. Joseph Certeza, and then we will hear from Mr. Vincent Reyes himself. So, Ms. Balbus.
Hafaday, Madam Chair. My name is Jackie Balbus, and I'm the acting executive director of the Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. I'm here today in support of Mr. Reyes' nomination to the CAHA board. I can recall when Mr. Reyes was a dancer under Dr. Benji Santiago many, many years ago. And I also do recall that from there he's grown and influenced so many people so much. He started the cultural dance program down at Pago and also the cultural program at Inarahan Middle School. And to date, he's brought that program to the high school level down at Southern High School. He's a proponent of cultural dance and the preservation of our culture. But I also think that it's important to have him on our board because culture is ever evolving. And I do believe in preserving all our traditions, but I also think it's good that he brings a new perspective, a fresh perspective to Chamorro dance. I'm hoping that the legislature will confirm his appointment. I think that he would be an asset to the CAHA board. He also brought the program to, as I mentioned, Southern High School, so he has that education background too as well. And I think in my earlier testimony with Mr. Ranquillo, I mentioned that we have an 11-member board should the 2 gentlemen be approved, but we're going to have a really diverse board. We have several CAHA masters on board, of which Mr. Reyes is also one recognized master of CAHA. But I'm hoping that he can help move all our programs at CAHA and maybe, like I said, bring a new perspective on how we can improve on a lot of the things that we're doing now. We're such a very small staff of 4, and quite honestly, we do have an active, engaging board. So I welcome Mr. Reyes to the board. Thank you.
Sousou Massey for your testimony. And now we'll hear from Mr. Certeza.
Hafaday, Madam Chair. Thank you for having me. My name is Joseph Certeza. I am currently the Vice Chair of the Council on the Arts and Humanities. And I support in the recommendation to confirm sign of Vince Reyes to our CAHA board, mainly because I have worked with him in the past as an aspiring artist and to now a valued artist. Working with him, I was able to be pushed and kind of like mentored in a way in my art form, which is what it is today, and I'm very valued for my relationship with Mr. Reyes. Other things that we need to consider about Saina Reyes is that he's a great innovator in the culture. He pushes the art form much further than I've seen, but it's really amazing to see how he's also using his mentoring skills to empower his students, because what I've seen in his students is that they are being pushed to create new music, and we need that in our island. He's pushing his students to be creating new dances, and we need to push the level of dance in our culture. And he provides all of those qualities that's needed in our cultural community. But he's also a great professional. I've seen him organize so many trips off island, but it's unique the way he organizes, because he organizes with his dancers as well. Yes, he's the guiding force, but he really wants to empower them to take initiative, take ownership of what they're doing. And that's something very valuable and something that we also need in the Council of the Arts and Humanities and in our arts community. I feel that with Mr. Reyes being present as a board member of CAHA, we can push the envelope forward in what the culture is going to be looking like into the future. And what more can I say, that I feel that he's going to be a very valuable asset, and our artist community needs these unique assets. So I really do support in his confirmation, and I hope the legislature can confirm him, so we can really push the arts forward into the next coming years, because we're ready for it. So thank you for allowing me to speak, Madam Chair.
Sousou Massey, to both of you for providing that testimony. I wrote down quite a few notes that I will touch on after we hear from Mr. Reyes, but both of you brought forward really important points that I think speak very well to his ability to really contribute to the community. First, we'll hear from Mr. Reyes himself, Sousou Massey.
Hafidi, my name is Vince Reyes. I am here I didn't know that I was actually supposed to have a testimony, but so I'm just going to kind of speak from the heart. I've been in the arts for many years. This is my 19th year in the education system, and in the creation of a part of Inat Nun Gef Bagu as we know today. When I first started the program, or when I first started this journey, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that there was something in my heart that wanted to speak and be a mirror of our people, and somehow to be able to elevate the level of artistry and to be able to be some sort of example of inspiration and possibility. I didn't know how I was going to do it. When I first started, it was just a class. It was actually a home-based class, which is a 15-minute class at Inarahan Middle School. Then I was tasked to create the curriculum, and finally that curriculum was approved by the Guam Education Policy Board in 2012 as the curriculum for the region. Now I'm tasked to be at Southern High to create a 3-year Pocket Academy program over there. Aside from that, I am the director of Inat Nun Gef Bagu, but more so I feel like I'm a mentor and teacher to them, meaning I do like what Mr. Joey had mentioned, that I am always about the evolution and upping the level of artistry of our culture, because through the arts. Why is that important? Is because art is peace. Peace is art, and if we're at peace in our hearts, then we know how to move and become part of this world. This humanitarian world, or this world of humanity. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but and when I work with people, I work with my students, or I work with collaborators. It's very important to kind of get to the big why. Why do we do it? Why is it important for my island? Why it's important for me? Why is it important for the people involved? Why it's important to the audience? And so what I'm here is because why I'm here is because I feel like I can contribute. Now I'm ready to contribute more island-wide. Although I do it already with what I do, and internationally, I've been to 27 countries around the world performing and perpetuating our culture alongside our kids, as well as a jury member to represent Oceania. At the end of the day, I'm just a son of the island, and I just want to do the best I can to contribute, and in whatever way I can, and most especially a proud son of the South, and I want to be able to continue or to be able to ensure that our stories stand the test of time, and our culture stands the test of time. That's it.
Sousou Massey, everyone, for your testimonies. And certainly I've known Mr. Reyes over the years, but I feel like I've gotten to know so much more about him in this short period of time through all of the really important testimony that we've gotten to hear. And so the fact that you've been in the industry for over 19 years, that's incredibly important, to be bringing a wealth of experience and a wealth of that just real on-the-ground understanding of how our arts work in Guam. And I'm a firm believer in being able to benefit by understanding ourselves, but also understanding the possibilities of what's out there. The fact that you have visited 27 countries, and I know when you go to those countries, you really interact with the community or the leaders or the dancers that are there, and it creates a real opportunity to see how they are working with their cultural programs, and then it becomes an opportunity to benefit our entire community, because you can bring back what you see that operates really well elsewhere, or something that could make sense for us here. And so I see that as a real benefit. You're a master, so that speaks for itself. And a master is so much more than just being excellent at your craft. In order to be a true master, you study the history, you know the community, you know the people. Like, it's really its own sort of a master's or PhD in that part of our culture, or the Chamorro culture. And so it's important, I think, that people recognize it as such. So definitely that is a wealth of knowledge that you bring and experience. And just hearing some of the things that were mentioned, being a mentor, being innovative, certainly it's important, the quality of empowering our community. Our community, portions of it, sometimes large portions of it, really struggle. And so having that sense of cultural identity, those are some of the strongest tools of helping people find their way, helping them feel rooted, helping them understand the world around them. And those things that KAHA offers, and potential board member such as yourself, but certainly as a master, those are gifts that you can provide our youth and the rest of our community. And so they're just so very important. So it's very good to hear that not only do you excel in your trade, but those around you see you being innovative or empowering the people that you work with, which are incredibly important. And it fits in with the purposes of the council. So if I go through the enabling legislation, they say things like stimulating and encouraging, developing and sustaining, and helping ensure the highest quality of the arts that are here. And so with the testimony that Ms. Balbus and Mr. Certeza and yourself provided, I can see elements of each of those aspects, which is definitely important for us as we're looking at board members. So also, you have the experience of understanding some of these things from the ground up, having developed programs, having developed dance groups. Again, within your role as a board member, understanding those things becomes something really valuable that you bring, as you might be thinking of ways to expand what KAHA offers, or something that could really benefit the community. And you understand all of the sorts of details that have to go into developing programs and so forth, and making sure that they are successful. With your many interests in some of the travel that you do, KAHA is a pretty active board, I would have to say. Do you see that you'd be able to make that commitment of time to balance out that commitment in your schedule?
Yeah, I think as all artists or everyone that's successful in their own way, a balance of time is very important. And for me, I've always invested in. I always invested in the arts, and I've always felt the need to up the level of artistry in whatever way. And as far as my commitment, I can say yes. So far, I'm good. And I think when it comes to the off-island trips, and off-island trips align with what we're trying to do as with CAHA and as a board, I'm sure, is because I don't necessarily go on a trip that doesn't relate to the arts. I usually go on the trip that somehow relates to the arts, and most especially relates to our island. Or inadvertently I come back with that knowledge and try to use it and return what I know back to the island.
Very good to hear. Are there any particular focuses or interests, ways forward that you see for CAHA that you'd like to share beyond what you've shared already?
Well, first for me, I'd love to learn more about the intricacies of CAHA and be more involved in that level. Try to understand what are some of the what is the staff saying, what are people saying, what is the movement really trying to do, or where are people trying to go. Once I think I learned that, and then I want to help guide that process and be some sort of voice. I've been blessed to be able to travel around the world. I've seen many arts organizations, and not just dance, but dance festivals and different people in the arts. And I've seen how they've grown the arts community, artist community, and aligned their efforts. And I definitely want to be able to develop those kinds of relationships as well here. First and foremost for me is really kind of understanding what are the dynamics and where does CAHA fit in the overall in trying to develop the community, and how does the arts fit, and not just culture, and how does that relate to our island culture. And I'm talking about not just the Chamorro culture, but our island culture, the culture of the island, what sustains us here. And so through programs, through the level of artistry or assisting, like Vice Chair had mentioned, that being able to work directly with many of these artists and try to assist them and guide them, empower them. Because eventually, if we all do this together, then I know that our mission as CAHA and in ensuring that our culture evolves and continues to move forward will be accomplished.
Sousou Massey for that. And as you were speaking, certain things I thought about is that you had mentioned noting, and this is something that CAHA does, is yes, it's very important, incredibly important part of what they do is to help promote and maintain the Chamorro culture, but also in their guidance, in the enabling legislation, their mission is also to promote the local culture of our greater community. And so it's good to hear that you're thinking and understanding both of those aspects, and also in some of what you were saying, that it is the artists themselves, but then it's also the community at large, how they enjoy the arts and how it enriches their lives. And so there are just so many benefits to having an organization such as CAHA and very active board members. So I again, thank you all for your time and coming out here. And did anybody have any additional testimony that they wanted to provide? Are we all good? I want to give everybody a chance.
Yes, they do.
Sousou Massey. And then if you could just state your name for the record and then go ahead and provide your testimony.
Okay. Hafaday, my name is Pimlim Tiako, and I'm one of the members of Inan Gef Pagu. I've known Mr. Reyes for more than 3 years now, and I do support his nomination or his confirmation. And I just want to share a little bit about him. He's really taught me to go closer to much more roots in the arts. And he's really encouraged me to be more creative and have pushed me to my limits as a musician in general. And he's taken me around the world. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been exposed to this level of artistry that existed. And even then, he really teaches us to, he kind of reminds us to stay grounded and to never forget where we come from. And he also allows us to pursue even our personal careers, like even though if we're involved in perpetuating our culture, he still allows us to like be teachers or be nurses or pursue, our own personal interests. But that's the best I can say for Mr. Reyes. I do believe that he is qualified for this position. Sousou Massey.
Thanks,
Sousou
ma'am.
Massey, for providing that testimony. It's very important to hear from people who know you in different roles. They've known you since you were young. As Jackie Balbus has mentioned, she's seen you grow as an artist and into a master. And then as Mr. Certeza has mentioned, he's seen you be innovative with the arts and empowering those that you work with. And then from somebody who's a part of the Ngef Pago and is speaking essentially about being empowered in many ways by participating in your program. So I think that's a very well-rounded set of testimonies. So if that is all the testimony, this committee will conclude the confirmation hearing of Vincent J. Reyes to serve as a member on the Board of Directors, Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on Heritage and the Arts, Parks, Guam Products, Hagåtña Revitalization, Self-Determination, and Regional Affairs, and submit it via email to office.senatorkelly@guamlegislature.org or to my office located at the second floor of the Guam Congress Building. Sousou Massey, again, for your attendance and participation in today's confirmation hearings. Today's public hearing has now ended, and the time is now 3:26. Sousou Massey.
Sousou Massey.